My name is Candace Chance. Um, I graduated in 2010 and then did my master's at Goucher and finished in 2012. And so I am currently the founder and CEO of the V.P.I firm, which stands for Vision, Performance, and Impact. And we are a strategy design firm, really creating equitable solutions at the center of real estate development, entrepreneurship, and local leadership. And within that entrepreneurship piece, we also launched a project called Build Beyond the Hustle, specifically supporting scaling and growth for Black, Indigenous, and other entrepreneurs of color. And there is a lot of difficulty in entrepreneurs of color and women entrepreneurs in scaling their businesses. And so we provide some technical assistance, strategy advisors, and other implementation support so that they can scale their businesses.
This is very cool. How did you get into that? Because I know you said you majored in biology, so I feel like that's a pretty big switch.
I did. Actually not that much. So biology, I loved science. Even in my study abroad, I studied abroad in Australia and did marine biology there, and then did the study abroad program in Honduras, which also focused on marine biology. And what I've learned through those experiences and also through my courses is that you can't really separate the natural world from the social world, right? And there are a lot of similarities in between living ecosystems and social ecosystems. And so I just apply that same knowledge with how things are interconnected, how things have mutually beneficial relationships, and apply that into the social realm, right? So how do my actions in Baltimore City affect somebody else's actions somewhere else? How does the government's actions impact our actions? So, it's very similar in terms of the level of thinking that you do in biology or in the sciences in general, with the work that I'm doing right now.
That's pretty cool. So did you do this right after leaving Goucher, or were there a few steps for you in between? I know you also said you did your master's, so obviously some years there.
Yeah.
But how did you get to working here? Did you work for someone else? Did you decide you wanted to work for yourself?
I did, and I would say, I am a rebel by nature. Maybe thanks to my parents who are also rebels in their own right. But I really kind of just stumbled into where I am right now. And well, I say that, but I also think it's like just my purpose, my divine purpose. I'm walking and living in my purpose. Um, and so after grad school, or actually my final semester in the graduate program, I gotten a job at a local nonprofit. And I came on as a teacher, working, in their after school programs, and then was really quickly, what's the word, promoted to a program coordinator. And then so from there, I got to develop some curriculum. So as an environmental organization, I got to develop curriculum that was specific to the urban environment. So I should say that in my graduate thesis was around using the scientific methods to promote leadership in urban youth. So that was my thesis, and it included a curriculum for how to do that. And so I was able to apply my thesis into this organization, and just started seeing a lot of things. I really didn't have the knowledge about like hierarchy and like going up the ladder. And I am more values based. And so I would, talk to my supervisor like, hey, we're saying we're doing this, but we're actually not doing that. And what are we going to do about it? And it was just a lot of things in terms of like the organization and how it worked, which I later found out that it happens across the board in corporate and in nonprofit areas. But there were a lot of things that I was trying to challenge, and eventually I didn't see myself growing in that organization anymore. And so I left in 2015, which is the same time that the uprising happened in Baltimore City after Freddie Gray. So yeah, it was just like, you know, I just started trying new things. I started this movement called the Baltimore Collaboration Lab to figure out, like, we're in this space in this city where, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of energy, and like, how do we bring that together in a cohesive manner to actually create change? And so I started that, had no idea what I was doing. We called it the Be More Collab for short. And it was a lot of grassroots leaders that came together and was trying to figure out, how do we actually work together in a way that makes sense and in a way that moves the needle. So after that, then I started consulting. Had no idea what consulting was. But I was meeting with a lot of these grassroots leaders, just asking them questions about their organization, helping them, troubleshoot some things that they had challenges with. And my mentor said to me, like, you're meeting with people, like your calendar is booked with meeting with leaders of organizations trying to help them figure out their stuff. That's called consulting, and people get paid for it, and you're not getting paid for it right now. I'm like, oh, really? So then I spent the next like year and a half figuring out, well, what is my consulting gig? Like, what does that look like? And so that's why I say I kind of stumbled, my way through, just asking more questions, trying out things that I liked and didn't like, taking on projects that, could just pay me because I'm not working, right? And I'm trying to start my own thing. So, and all of that kind of led up to where I am
That
now.
is a really interesting, I guess, way to have come around that from nonprofits to sort of doing your own thing and really working with new people. How did you get in those positions when you were talking to leaders of these different companies? Was it through that like sort of grassroots organization that you were a part of in the beginning? Is that how you made those connections, or were some of them made elsewhere?
Yeah. Yep. Some of them were made with that organization. And I'm also advocacy minded. And, I'm born and raised in Baltimore City. So I also knew a lot of people who were doing work in the city and just was connected to them. Um, Actually, the person who started the Be More Collab with me was also a fellow Goucher
Hmm.
grad. And his name is Gabe. And so he was also very into advocacy and what was going on in the city. And yeah, so it was a mix between knowing folks from the previous organization and just going out and talking to people and being connected and asking more questions, asking people who I should talk
Yeah,
to.
that's definitely a good point. And I like that you sort of built upon the connections you had. How did you go from, you said you were doing it for free, to eventually showing yourself as, I am a consultant, I am working for this? I know a lot of people struggle with like promoting their own image and trying to start something on their own. How did you make that transition to, oh, I'm just helping you out, to this is a service I offer now? And how did you go about starting that, I guess?
Yeah, so that was about 4 or 5 years ago, and I can honestly say I'm still making that transition. I'm definitely a lot better. I have more consistent clients and things like that, but I think it's really, entrepreneurship is a mind game, right? And it has a lot to do with um, your mindset, and also your willingness to just do whatever you need to do to make things happen. And it has been the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. Um, and I think having a community of support is very important, um, because there are days when, you're just like, there's no way I can do this. Like, who do I think I am to do something like, I don't know anybody else who's done anything like this. Like, who do I think I am? So many days where your self-talk can talk you out of actually being successful. And that's with anything, right? That's in school, that's in, relationships, that is in anything. And so entrepreneurship is really about, can you knock out that voice that says that you can't do it and do it anyway, right? Even if it's still saying you can't do this, are you still going to take the step to do it? And that's why I say that it's still a transition, it's still a process, because quite you never quite get rid of that voice completely. It always comes up. It's a bigger project, right? So now I'm working on a bigger project. And so it's more risk, it's more chances that I can fail. And so that voice pops up again, like, well, yeah, you did that smaller project, but it's a bigger one. Do you really think you can do this? So, that support is necessary. Learning, being a consistent student. I took courses, I read ebooks, all of the things I did it. I was in every workshop, every program, anything that I could learn more about my industry and, how do I price this thing, all of those things.
That's very cool. And I feel like you touch on a really great point. You never stop learning. You're always a student. You're always doing things to better yourself, your business, where you're going in life. And that is so important and such a good thing to focus on. And a few of the other coffee chats I've had have really focused on that aspect as well. So when you were doing this, I'm assuming you sort of started out in person. Now that COVID has kind of impacted our ability to meet with people in person and advise them and consult them that way, how has your industry sort of changed? Are you doing things differently? Is it over Zoom? How does that work for you now?
So a lot of my work actually, I was already doing a hybrid between meeting in person and Zoom. The only change is that all of it now is really via Zoom. And actually, so when COVID hit, I was already looking to launch Build Beyond the Hustle, which is the one that supports BIPOC founders. And COVID really showed me how important that project was, because I thought like, oh, well, this pandemic, people are not going to want to hear about you launching something new. Like it doesn't seem right. But after talking to some advisors, they were like, no, this is important to launch, especially at this time, because there are a lot of small businesses, there are a lot of non-employer businesses, meaning that it's only them working in that business, who need the support that Build Beyond the Hustle will provide. And so it actually was a catalyst for me to launch that. And so my work hasn't really slowed down. There were some projects that stopped for a moment only so that we could figure out how to move forward. But other than that, like, things are picking up more and more now.
I'm glad that it has been so successful for you, especially because launching new thing, like you said, your inside voice sometimes is like, you're doing something new. This is a little scary. Is this the right time? And I'm glad that's been so good for you and has worked out so well. I did want to touch on something you talked about earlier. You mentioned that you studied abroad in, I think, Australia and somewhere else, while also being a science
Honduras
major. So that can be really hard. How did you do that? And sort of what experiences did you take from that study abroad that sort of helped you along and getting into this career and doing what you do now?
So I was not necessarily the best student. I was that student that, was in the library while people were like trying to focus and get things done. And I was watching like YouTube videos and like, playing around with my friends and like just doing silly, stupid things, right? And then at the last minute, you got a paper to turn in, and I'm like doing all-nighters for a week. But I think what I recognized about my experience at Goucher was that I'm very relationship oriented. So I made sure to make connections with professors. At that time, the president at that time, I had a connection with him. He connected me to, he gave me recommendations. He connected me to Sandy Unger. He connected me to, just other opportunities because of the relationship I built with him. So although my grades weren't that great, like I look back on it now like, oh my gosh, that was bad. Like I did not do well in school. But the connections that I made and the relationships that I built kind of, covered for that, for my lack of academic performance. And it wasn't because I wasn't, smart or intelligent. It's just, I just didn't take it seriously. One thing I noticed is that when I went to Australia and I studied abroad there for a semester, the environment was completely different. And that gave me insight into the college and university environment in the US versus in other countries, how stressful it is here. And so I went to, and I took like some honors courses in the university in Australia. Just the whole setup was different. So lectures weren't required. You could watch from, your computer, wherever you were in your dorm room, but there were these group labs that were required. So they put an emphasis on group work and collaboration, and not so much the lecture style of things. And then a lot of it was very interactive, and that was helpful for the way that I think. And I excelled. Like my grades were so much better in Australia than they were here. And also when I came back to Goucher, so the way that the system in Australia works, we were finished our exams before Goucher students were. So when I came back, people were still in the midst of exams. When I stepped on the campus, I felt the stress.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. And I stepped on other campuses and it was stress. And so I even think just the education system here puts a lot more stress on students than I've experienced in other countries.
I completely agree. I just returned from a academic year at Oxford. And like, yes, the coursework was hard. Like it wasn't easy. It wasn't a breeze. But the way
Right.
that they structure everything, lectures there are not required either. And it is a focus on small group work and really like making strides in the industry that you're studying, and getting really in depth on that. It's not 1,000 assignments a week. It's just really valuable ones. And I can definitely agree the stress level at the colleges in the US, like right now, it was just midterms last week, / I have one on Friday this upcoming week. So it's crazy. And you can't talk to anybody. I called my friend. She's like, sorry, I'm writing a paper. I can't talk to you. So I definitely understand.
Right.
I'm glad that you found that connection to, I do learn really well. It's not that I'm not a good student. It's just that the system is not good for me. And did that influence your thesis and the writing that you did for that? Because you said it was, you like built a curriculum for urban students. Was that part of that? Did that influence that?
Well, so I will say that the graduate program, so I did cultural sustainability. Um, and my graduate experience was completely different than my undergraduate experience. Like two completely different vibes, and like just the atmosphere is different. But also the master's in cultural sustainability, I don't know the other programs, so I can't really speak to that. But the professors there are different, right? They create a different environment for the students. I was there for the first year of the program. So I was the first graduating student, class from that program. Or second. Anyway, so it was still very new. And because I think the courses were directly related to what I wanted to do with my life, I was a lot more invested in the program. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to capture what the question was and to make sure that I'm answering.
I was just asking how, like, if you're studying abroad and realizing that the system was so much different than the US system, if that influenced your thesis, because I remember you saying it was about sort of learning and urban environments, and you built a curriculum for that. And I was wondering if that took into some of the experiences you had while you were in Australia.
Yeah, I think to some degree, but also in one of the courses that I took was called Designing a Learning Experience. And I really got to do research into how people think and how to structure learning environments that meet the way people think. And so the curriculum was really designed, and I actually implementing it in the organization, for example, in kindergarten, right? And I create a curriculum for K through 8th grade. And so in kindergarten, they're learning about, hibernation or habitats, right? Different animals' habitats. And typically what's done is you have a module that you talk about, hibernation, or a different module that you talk about, and it's very segmented. And the way that I redesigned it was, let's start off with the question, right? Because I learned that when the brain is asked a question, it naturally does what it can do to answer that question. And so instead of saying, today we're going to learn about habitats, well, the question was, can a polar bear survive in the desert? Right. And so we had, pictures of polar bears, and they drew pictures of polar bears, and we had to discover, what do polar bears like? So we got to know about their habitat, right? And so from there, then they can say, okay, well, what would they need if they like the cold and they like these things? What would they need in the desert? So then they need a big ice house, or, things like that. So now it's more exciting because it's more of an exploration, because your brain is trying to answer that question. So I would say that it was a mix of my experiences that helped inform my thesis.
That is very cool. And I think that's a really interesting way to go about teaching them, and sounds way more engaging. Even me, I'd be way more interested if someone's like, how do you answer this wild question that I'd never considered before, than, we're just going to learn about this random topic that I probably didn't really care about.
Right.
So I definitely think that's really cool and really interesting. How did you mentioned that your master's program, your graduate program, differed a lot from your undergrad experience. How so? Was it, did you do it full time? Did you do it while working? Like, what made it different?
Mm-hmm. I did it full time, and for me, I think it's the program itself, right? It's how they structured the program. It's the people who so it was a distance learning program. So we had people from all over. There was a woman from Kenya in the program. So we were able to, and I think, quite frankly, I was the youngest person there. So, in undergrad, it's like everybody that's your age. Some people still, immature, like all that stuff. But with this graduate program, I'm the youngest person there. Maybe the oldest person was like 70, so there's this wide range of experiences. And just, I think because of the way that the culture that they created in that program, it really made it feel familial. So it felt like family, right? And it was a smaller program. So I think just all of that just created a different environment for learning.
That's very cool. And sometimes I think I forget that Goucher offers graduate programs. So it's good to remember that those exist, and they are very successful, as you've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. When you were at Goucher, beyond the graduate and doing your undergrad there and studying abroad, did you have any like internships, or did you do any research like within the biology department, or was that not really your thing?
I didn't. I knew that I really didn't want to, and not to say that the only thing that you could do is be in a lab, but I knew that I loved the sciences, but I couldn't put my finger on where I fit within that. Some of the job opportunities, mentioned, before I even got to Goucher, I thought I wanted to do forensic science. Like, I thought I wanted to be a forensic scientist. But when I got there, and especially after doing the study abroad and seeing the connection between, so in Honduras, we were studying marine biology, and seeing the connection between the science and people's lived experiences, I knew that I wanted to kind of bridge that gap and bridge that connection more on the people side versus on the technical science side. And I also, I was a part of Umoja, the Black Student Union. I started out as a treasurer, then eventually became the president. And so a lot of my my thinking and my work was around equity issues on the college, on the campus, and just in the community. Like, how are we actually integrating with Baltimore City and in the work that we do there? How are we doing that in an effective way, in an equitable way? But also on the campus, like, how do we have these difficult conversations about race, about identity, in a way that leaves people informed, but also empowered, right? And so I think a lot of those experiences, there were a ton of situations that happened, with us leading Umoja that just gave me insight into how people think, right? I met people who had never met a Black person before. And I was just like, what? Like, that's a thing? That's a real thing? And just a lot of weird conversations, a lot of like just recognizing that there are people who have been very sheltered, and who also are making decisions about other people's lives. And so just all of those experiences, like, just helped me be who I am
I
today.
think those experiences are awesome, and I'm glad you were so involved on campus, and that has really helped you in your role, and especially following such a non-traditional like career path. Graduating with biology to becoming an entrepreneur is a very not something you necessarily see people do. So what would you recommend for students that are kind of in that position of, okay, I like this, but I don't love it, and I know I want to do something different, and I know I want to make a difference? How, like, what is some advice that you'd have for students in a role that you were in?
Yeah. I have it's a number of things that I'm thinking, but so I would first say that, sometimes we hear this term like follow your passion, follow your dream, and it's not a full statement. It's not a fully true statement, because we are multi-passionate human beings, meaning that we have multiple passions. And when you keep hearing follow your passion, but you see that you like so many different things, you start to get bogged down by what is actually possible. And so for me, what I've learned is that I am passionate about a lot of things, but where does my passion, the need for a solution to be, or challenge to be solved, and my ability to generate revenue, where do those three things intersect, right? And wherever they intersect, that's where I can start movement, right? Move in the direction of that intersection. And then maybe in volunteer work, I can choose one of my other passions, because now I'm more financially stable to do this thing. Or I can decide, once a week, I'm going to do this other thing that I'm passionate about. So the advice there is to accept the fact that you are multi-passionate, and that you have multiple passions, and you may do one year and another one a different year, and that's all fine. And then in addition to that, take risks, right? Take risks in the type of friends that you make, the type of courses that you take, and also the rules that you break. So take value-based risks, right? Based on who you are at the core and who you want to be.
I love both of those, especially the one about having different passions, because I definitely am in that position right now. I like a lot of things, and I don't know exactly what route to take with them and what to do, and I like the thought process that you can put one on the side. It doesn't mean you don't like it anymore. It just means you're focusing on something else. So I definitely love those, and I am excited to share them with our students. And it is 2:30, so I just wanted to be conscious of your time, and thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciated this, and this is going to be really great for our students.
Awesome. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
I hope
me.
you have a great rest of your week.
You
Bye.
too. Take care.